Morning. Good to see everybody this morning. Start out with just a couple personal things I wanted to share with the community here. So I did end up proposing to my partner after about 6 years of us being together, and she said yes. And so that's very exciting for us and our family. Yeah, so it's been kind of a long time coming. And that was just after our last session. I went home and did that. So very, very happy. And as mentioned at the end of our session, there's a lot of people that support us in our practice, And so I have been coming here for quite a while, the duration of our relationship. And, we have small children at home, and not all of them are small, I guess. Some teenagers, a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old, and so it's challenging. It's challenging to be able to make this work with all of the things going on, and it really takes an effort. So when I come here and I'm able to practice and sit with the community and give talks, go to sessions. Just recognition that it's not just me showing up, it also impacts everything else, and we're actually supported by the rest of the world, and so just kind of a recognition of that. But yeah, so I just wanted to let you guys know that I am feeling a little bit ill-prepared to give this talk today, to be honest with you. My partner has been out of town this weekend, and so I was on kid duty this weekend, and I didn't get much of a chance to do my final preparation for the talk today. And so forgive me if there's pauses where I have to gather my thoughts throughout this. But I have been reading this book, Just This Is It, which I have to say is pretty darn good so far, and so I've been really enjoying this. And basically through the upcoming year, I think if I give a talk, it'll likely be on this book, and so we just got through a class that I taught this January, and I did a similar thing where I, really invested time into exploring the text throughout the previous year, and I feel like that worked out pretty well. So I'm going to do that similar thing for this upcoming course that I'll be doing next year. That'll be on this book. But some of this might be very familiar to you. I've heard these teachings off and on throughout the years coming here to this center, and so the title of the talk today is "You Are Not It; It Is You." And you might have heard that before. But this text is about Dongshan. He was one of the most prominent teachers of the Tang dynasty, Chan, and is considered the founder of Caodong lineage, one of Chan 5 houses, as they were described in later Chan. Interestingly, this lineage was transmitted to Japan by Dogen. And so I didn't know that prior to this. I'm not a history buff, so I tend to gloss over information like that. But very interesting, And so this, I would imagine, is in a lot of Dogen's teachings. He was able to learn the teachings from this lineage, and I don't have a whole lot of information on that at this point. But that lineage is known as Soto Zen. And Soto Zen is a significant factor in transporting Buddhism to the West. And so a lot of our teachers that you probably have come across, Shunryu Suzuki, Katagiri Roshi, a lot of our teachings come from this lineage. And so very interesting. Probably the most pivotal and emblematic story about Dongshan occurred with his departure from Yun Yan, which was his teacher at one point. After some period of practice with Yun Yan, Dongshan asked Yun Yan later on, if I am asked to describe your reality or your teaching, how should I respond? After some pause, Yun Yan said, just this is it. Very Zen, you know. And I see a lot of practitioners here that are familiar with this. And when you hear a teaching like just this is it, you might have some notion of what that's alluding to, you know. But if we haven't, if you want to look at, think about when you first encountered these teachings, or maybe this is your first time encountering something like this. When a teacher says, just this is it, you know, if we don't have any exposure to this or any insight, our mind will generally start to search for an object. We'll start to put ideas together about what this is. So when Yan Yan says just this is it, it's being very candid, very direct and to the point. Just this. And then we start to think, well, what is this? What is this? You know, and our mind just starts looking for the answer to that, you know, or the like what exactly is being pointed to. So I would just invite you to notice your mind. Notice your mind, search for something to put there, something to latch onto as an idea for what this is. And this is our practice, is to just, I don't hear this too much anymore, but I really like it every time I hear it. And it's watch your mind. Just watch your mind. Notice. Notice as we try to search for things, as we try to grasp onto things as ideas. And we're always going for the ideas. We're always searching for some answer or some concept to fulfill, you know, our questions. But these teachers, they point to just directly what is here, what is now. And it's not an object of mind. So just this refers to reality with a capital R. This is here and now, and it's beyond human conceptualizations. And I always question that word beyond. You know, is it beyond or before? It's always just here now. But a concept cannot capture this reality. We want the idea, we want to get the answer, but it just can't form as an idea. It just doesn't. It doesn't work that way. However, we can't dismiss thinking because thinking is a part of this experience. So all Dharma teachings are pointing to this. And for example, the two truths, you know, this is the two truths. And so when we hear the two truths, this is relative and absolute. And we get the idea of relative as, you know, the world of this and that, anything you can identify, put a label to, anything that shows up, especially as an idea or a concept. This is part of the relative world. It's in relation or relative to other things that show up. And then you have the other part of it, which is absolute, and absolute is beyond words. You know, it's sometimes everything is one. You know, you can't separate things, and it's all absolute. And so when we hear a teaching like this, pardon me, I gotta get another sip of water here. When we hear about the two truths, initially, at least this was how I approached it, is it sounds like they're two different things. You know, it sounds like the relative is over here, and the absolute is over here. And if I could just make my way over to the absolute, my life would be free of suffering, you know. And so again, what we do sometimes with these teachings is underneath that, we're looking for the idea. We want to get the correct idea about what these teachers are pointing to. And we'll do it with teachings such as the two truths. But the thing about the two truths is that it really is not an idea. Teachers are always pointing to the nature of reality. And these two truths are not separate. So just in the midst of the relative world is the absolute. You can't pull these things apart. They're not things, but they're rather just pointing to what's actually taking place. And so the narration states that Dongshan was then lost in thought. And Yan Yan said, "You are now in charge of this great matter. You must be most thoroughgoing." Dongshan departed without further comment. Later, while wading across the stream, he looked down, saw his reflection, and awakened to the meaning of the previous exchange. He then wrote the following verse: "Just don't seek from others, or you'll be far estranged from self. I now go on alone. Everywhere I meet it, it now is me. I am not it. One must understand in this way to merge with suchness." So I wanted to backtrack. We'll get to the guy's commentator's comment there in a second, but I wanted to back up for a second to Yun Yan's comment. "You are now in charge of this great matter. You must be thoroughgoing." And so here was the teacher saying this to the student, and I was trying to think of a way to bring out the, what's being pointed out here. And basically, Yun Yan let Dongshan know that he is now the host. This host and guest comes from Master Linji called those who had insight to teach the host, and the student the one who comes to learn, the guest. And so there's host and guest. And so again, our minds might solidify this a little bit, right? And so there's the host, the one who has the knowledge, the insight, the ability to convey this to other people, such as students, and the students are the guests. I don't know if this is the best way to put this, but I'm trying. So we might start to solidify that. Well, there's the host, there's the teacher, and there's the guest. And what I want to point out about that is that these are much like the pedestrian. You're a pedestrian when you're walking down the road. You're not a pedestrian when you're sitting at home eating Cheetos, watching TV. So these are fleeting identities. They're ideas or concepts that we use, but they don't actually capture the whole picture. And this idea of host and guest, there you could be a teacher 1 minute, or 1 moment, expressing something from genuine understanding. The student, in quotation marks, might also have insight and be the teacher presenting something to the student. It's fleeting like this, and so I just don't want you to hold on to this idea of host and guest. But I do like this host and guest. In Master Linji's time, some Buddhist terms were used so often they became meaningless. People chewed on words like liberation and enlightenment until they had lost their power. And generally, I certainly do that. I'm guilty of that. That I hear an idea of enlightenment or liberation, and it's solidified. I solidify it, and it's an object out there that I want to go after. I want to get the enlightenment. Anyway, enough about that. So you are now in charge of this great matter. So just recognizing that Dongshan had this understanding. And then he says, you must be thoroughgoing. And I don't think this is a small statement. You know, there's more than meets the eye to this, because when we say you must be thoroughgoing, when we start to understand what this practice is, originally we might come to this, have some idea of enlightenment or awakening and getting the thing, you know. After, you know, some time, I don't, you know, however long it takes, we can start to realize that there's no end to this. There's no final, you know, answer or solution or grand thing that's going to happen where you're no longer after practice. You know, we get caught on a continuous basis, and so it's continuously watching your mind and engaging in practice in an honest and authentic way. And it's only when we can recognize that what this practice is, and continuously, moment by moment, watch our own minds, engage in activity wholeheartedly. This is wholehearted practice. I've heard this said once, and I don't know why it always stood out to me. I think it was Steve Hagen was talking about moving the cushions, you know, and how he noticed somebody just kind of putting the cushion from one place to the other, and how, you know, it just seemed to be like a, you know, how we do things where it's just like mindlessly, we just kind of toss things and, you know, move it out of the way. We just want to do it to get the job done. And he pointed out that that's a mistake. I'm paraphrasing here. Was quite a while ago, actually. But he said, when you move the cushion, bend down, grab the cushion, and place it. You know, do this with mindfulness. Do this with wholehearted practice. And each moment is like that. And we might think that the Zendo is the place to practice. Well, what isn't a place to practice? You know, after a while, hopefully we can see that this is never ending. No matter where we are or what we're doing, it's always wholehearted practice. And we always have the ability to wake up to what this is. And it's wholehearted engagement in the activity, instead of being lost in our minds. And I don't know why, but that cushion, you know, just always, it gives me the opportunity to check myself when I'm doing seemingly mundane activities. You know, it's like, well, it's only mundane because of my thinking about it. It's like every moment is just this. It's always just this. And it's an opportunity to engage wholeheartedly with just this. So again, you are now in charge of this great matter. You must be thoroughgoing. So back to the image here. So gazing at his reflection, and this is Dongshan, in the stream, Dongshan could see that this image was him, yet he could not be reduced to the representation in the water. And I really like this example. It reminds me of the baby picture, you know, where we see an image of ourselves, and without even thinking twice about it, until maybe we encounter something like these teachings, or have a moment of, you know, realization, or whatever you want to call it. We don't second guess these things. We see an image of ourselves in the water. There I am, you know. We probably don't say that to ourselves, but it's just ordinary. This is just an image of myself. Well, in this moment, Dongshan recognized that, is that him? You know, is that image reflecting him? And maybe you can see that well, obviously there's no way that the image that he's seen in the water is him, because it's just an image. It goes a little bit beyond that, and into what actually is I. What is I referring to? So we really have this underlying idea that we are something that persists and doesn't change with time. Or persists and doesn't change. And so an image or a picture cannot capture reality with a capital R. And Dongshan was able to see that when he noticed the image of himself in the water. So the relationship of true reality to image, reflection, or depiction is at work in various ways here. These reflections are not themselves this ultimate reality, but suchness fully includes all images or depictions of it. So even the image is reality. This is kind of I feel like this is kind of a mind twister, or a subtle point where we can't dismiss the image. The image is part of reality. It's inseparable from reality. So the relationship of true reality to image, reflection, or depiction is at work in various ways here. I just read that. Sorry. So there isn't a relationship between true reality, but rather the image, the reflection, depiction are inseparable from reality. But the image will not capture reality. It doesn't capture what's actually taking place. So our experience of suchness and any expression of it can be in accord with suchness, but do not fully capture the suchness of the world. And I just wanted to, I found myself kind of picking apart these words and the way that they were being used here. And I don't mean to pick on the author or even say that the person writing is wrong. That isn't my point here, but we don't have an experience of suchness. And the only reason I say that is because when it's worded in that way, I just found myself kind of thinking of it almost implies a duality. Like there is suchness out there and we can have an experience of suchness. And so it just kind of brings up, at least when I was reading this, a subject-object type of setup. And an expression of suchness would be without intention. And so this is action from the whole. Action that doesn't have an intention. And usually our actions come from ideas. We think about something, we have a goal in mind, we have an object in our mind that we want to accomplish, and we act with intention. And so expression of suchness would be action from the whole. So there is not a suchness of the world, but rather suchness is the world, and the world is suchness. I don't know about this word world, reality. Suchness is reality with a capital R. In various contexts, suchness may refer to the clear perception of reality, or else to the nature of reality itself. Also, capital R reality, ultimate truth. The author brought this out as emptiness, non-substantiality, and is very clear in pointing out that this is not nothing. So when we hear a word like emptiness, as it's referred to in these teachings, we might get the idea that this is somehow negating, negating everything. And so the author, which I appreciated, points out that this is not nothing. Emptiness is not saying that nothing, there's nothing here. Because obviously, this is occurring. We're having this experience. It doesn't negate this. So things are empty because of their interdependence, as each particular event in the elaborate product of the dependent causation of many conditions. Nothing exists as a separate entity unto itself. In capital R reality, there is no such thing as suchness. And so suchness can't be put into an idea or a concept It's just this or thus. So moving on here. This is back to Dongshan's verse. So I'm going to go through this line by line. This really hit me. So again, just don't seek from others or you'll be far estranged from self. I know now go on alone. Everywhere I meet it, it now is me. I now am not it. One must understand in this way to merge with suchness. And this is just so profound. I found this very, very striking when I read it. So just don't seek from others or you'll be far estranged from self. First question that comes up, well, then why seek a teacher? Why would I go travel far distances or show up for a talk? If he's saying just don't seek from others, well, then why show up and listen at all? Well, it's because we get confused. We get easily caught into our ordinary way of seeing things. And so you are Buddha. There's no need to seek. That's what Dongshan is pointing out here, that there's no need to seek from others because we actually already have what we're looking for. And we don't have it, but we already are part of this. We are inseparable from the very thing, which isn't a thing that we're looking for, And so seeking implies that we're lacking something, and seeking implies like an object of mind. And teachers are always pointing to our own delusion, our own confusion. So that's why it's helpful to hear teachings. That's why it's helpful to have interactions with a teacher, because a teacher can point out where we're caught, where we have ideas about things that aren't necessarily, they're off the mark. If we have an idea and we believe the idea to be absolutely true and real, then it's off the mark. And so the second part of that first sentence, or that first far estranged from self. It says, so just don't seek from others or you'll be far estranged from self. And far estranged is, yeah, just don't seek from others or you'll be far estranged from self. And the self is not you, So this is referring to capital S, self, capital R, reality, wholeness. So as soon as we seek, we're apart. There's a separation there. If we're seeking, it's assuming that there's a separation, that there's an object out there that we need to get in order to get the understanding. And so you'll be far estranged from self if you're seeking, if you're not realizing or understanding that just this is it. So the second part of his phrase here is, I now go on alone. Everywhere I meet it, it now is me. I now am not it. So even further, I'm going to break this down section by section in this sentence here. So now I now go on alone. There's no choice but to go on alone. It's always just this. And this alone isn't the what's that word? Loneliness, where we feel lonely. Well, when we feel lonely, there's like this there's this solidified belief in that I exist. And that's where the loneliness actually comes from. We could never be apart from the rest of totality. We're never apart from this. But when we believe we're separate and apart, then we feel lonely. But when he says here, I now go on alone, he has this understanding. He's expressing this understanding that there's no separation between him and the rest of reality. So this big S self, that's what is referred to here as alone. I now go on alone. Everywhere I meet it. Well, there's no place but here and now. And this word meet, I don't know. I don't mean to pick apart the what it says here. But he's not really meeting it because there's no separation. But everywhere is just this. Every time is just now. And so this is the whole. We're inseparable from it. So moving on here. It now is me. I now am not it. It now is me. This is reality, the whole. It's not an it as an object. Now is always now. This is be italicized. Is me. And when he says it now is me, he's not confused and thinking that he is something separate from the rest of reality. It now is me is just this. It's not something separate and apart. So me would be the capital S self. Are you guys tracking this? I just want to check in. Okay. I feel like I get lost sometimes in the weeds of this stuff. Yeah, please.
I'm confused by the term rest of reality. It seems to me there is no rest of reality.
You're right.
Just reality.
You're right.
You're not separating. There's not him and then the rest of the reality. There's just reality.
Right.
There is no rest stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't know how to word it a better way. But yeah, but if he's looking at it like if we're talking from the relative perspective or the confused perspective, whatever we want to put it, if we think there's a him and the rest of reality, what I was trying to point out is that there's no separation. There's no,
But it's confusing to say rest of reality.
But it's confusing to say absolute and relative because very confusing because they're not the same thing.
They are not separate.
Yeah, right.
They're not separate. They're actually not different. They're actually not different.
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
We need to understand that what we're reaching for, plan to kind of capture them where
Yeah.
we have to realize that we actually can't do this. We could nitpick endlessly about how crazy, there's no way to put it. But Beau is pointing, we want to find out, I think, but it's impossible to really say it. I've never said what is ultimately beyond Buddha. Nor as the Buddha, I mean, it's impossible to say. So it's a matter of just pointing out that you can't grasp it, what the experience is, and realize that you can't grasp it, nor can we speak of it with any finality.
But we have to say something.
We have to say something.
Thank you. So Mary, I was going to say, point taken. So the rest of reality, I get your point, and that's something that I've criticized myself about in the past. I don't know how to word it in a better way. Hopefully I'll figure it out in future talks or something. But yeah, thank you for the comment. Okay, moving on, and thank you for all the comments. All right. So moving on to the last section of his waking up statement here. One must understand in this way to merge with suchness. And so just breaking this apart into smaller sections here, one must understand in this way. What is this understanding? What is understanding in this way? Well, this is just seeing. This is the italicized seeing. This is not an intellectual understanding. If you watch your mind, you can notice the grasping that usually takes place We want the idea. And that's not what's being pointed out here. That's not the actual understanding. But if we can notice the grasping and notice the activity of the small m mind, this is seen, you know. There's finer points to that, but basically this is seen. You know, can we see our own delusion? Like waking up, I've heard it said here before many times, we wake up to our own delusion. And so can we see our own misunderstanding, our own grasping and searching for the right idea? So this understanding in this way would be a capital K knowledge. This is actual knowledge. And it's not going to form as an idea in your mind. So one must understand in this way to merge with suchness. So we are inseparable from suchness, we just don't realize it. And this word merge can imply like a separation, you know. Even in our confusion, we're inseparable from reality with a capital R. That was actually profound when I finally realized that even in the midst of our confusion, we're Buddha, you know. Very confusing when I first heard that, but when I started to understand what was being pointed out there, it's almost like even in the worst of times, even in the midst of confusion, we're this is reality. We're inseparable from reality. And so just seeing is to merge with suchness. And again, we don't really have to merge with suchness because this is suchness. We are suchness. It's just whether or not we have the understanding. And so I looked up some stuff online about this and was able to come across Suzuki's spin on Dongshan's comment at Tassajara. So this was a talk he gave a while back. Shinryo Suzuki, the author of Zen Mind Beginner's Mind, one of the very influential books in Zen. Suzuki says, don't try to figure out who you are. If you try to figure out who you are, what you understand will be far away from you. You will just have an image of yourself. Suzuki commented further, actually, you are in the river. You may say that this is just a shadow or a reflection of yourself, but if you look carefully with warm-hearted feeling, that is you. So we are inseparable from the river. We are inseparable from anything that you can think of. We're inseparable from the rest of, can't help it, from all of reality, all of reality. And so concepts, again, cannot capture reality. The reflection is not you, but you are the reflection. You know, I don't know, that came in my head when I was preparing for this talks. That makes sense to me. So again, the reflection is not you, but you are the reflection. You're inseparable from the reflection. We don't dismiss the reflection. We don't dismiss the relative world. That's part of that. That's reality. The relative and the absolute are not two. So we don't negate the relative. We don't negate the ideas that come up in our mind, dismiss them entirely. They can be useful in getting by in this world. So we don't negate that. But it's just a matter of not being confused that the image is going to capture something that we call I, myself, Beau Elkington. It's the baby picture. The baby picture, yeah, it's me in the past, but what is me? What is the me referring to? And can a picture really, is that me? You know, I don't know why, but it took me a long time to actually see what was being pointed out in the baby picture examples. I really like that. That's all I got today. I actually have more that I was going to do, but I think I'm going to save it for future talks because they're koans from the Book of Serenity, which are pointing to stuff that's similar, but I don't want to get into that now. So that's my talk. Do you guys have any questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.